Okay, guys. So, when last we left, I was going through the alphabet here, and I think I got to D or E. And since then, I've gone ahead and I've created the entire alphabet. And through the power of Food Network fast forward, you didn't have to watch me do all of that. So, what I need to do now is that they're all created on the grid. Is I got to pull them off the grid, and the easiest way to do that um, is going to be to select one of these boxes. So I just grabbed this little box here in the A, and I'm going to say select and same, and I'm just going to say fill color. And it grabs all of the little boxes like this. And the easiest way to go ahead and kind of separate these from everything else is to open up your layer palette. So I'll close this and open it back up again. So that's going to be underneath window and layers. And right now everything is just sitting here on layer 1. So I'm going to make a brand new layer by clicking on this icon here that says create new layer. And then everything's highlighted in this blue color. And I'm going to grab this little dot right here on layer 1. I'm going to drag it right up to layer 2. And now everything is highlighted in a red color because layer 2 is red. And I'm going to name layer 1 grid. And I'm going to name layer 2 letters. And I can put a lock on grids so I don't accidentally move it. I could even turn the eyeball off of them so I don't even see them. And then letters up here has its own thing. Now, if I go ahead and select these things, they're still separate. So what I really need to do is now I got to go in to each of these things individually and go ahead and group them. But actually, as I do that, now I kind of think a little bit. I think I'm going to say undo, and I'm going to go back a couple steps. So I'm going to edit undo right before I moved it, right? And I think what I'm going to do here is I want to keep them on their grid just in case I ever got to come back and rework this. So I'm going to hold down the Option key as I drag this up, and you'll see there's a little plus sign there. You see that little plus sign? So that is going to drag a copy up here to the grids. So, up here to layer 2. So if I turn off layer 2, you still see the grid structure here in layer 1. So I'll call that grids again, and I'm going to put a lock on there one more time, just so then that way I have that. And then I'll turn layer 2 on, and here they're all here again. But as I mentioned, they're all separate little boxes still. So what I do have to do is individually to each one of these, I'm going to select each group of boxes that create the letter form, and I'm going to say object and group, or use the command G. So I'm just going to go through this and do this quickly. So I'm just making a selection, and I'm holding down the command key and the letter G on my keyboard, and I'm grabbing all of them. So it'll take you a few minutes to get through all your A through Z. I did not do numbers and symbols, although you do need to do it for your assignment. I just did my alphabet here, but you will need to make sure you don't forget to put in your numbers and your various symbols. And what this is going to do, folks, for those of you that are still pretty new to Illustrator, is this goes ahead and takes all these individual objects and turns them into one object that we can work with a little bit here. And this is what's really going to go ahead and help us out in regards to, seeing this stuff as these little boxes as an actual letter form. Because while they do look like letters, we're not going to really know until we start kind of putting them next to one another to see if they make words. Cool, so that's done. And so now if I just click on this little box here in the queue, it grabs everything in the queue. So that makes it really easy to be able to move this stuff around. So I'm going to come over here to one of the empty pages over here, and I'm going to turn on this thing called rulers. So I'm going to go to View, Rulers, and Show Rulers, or Command R. And then I'm going to just go ahead and bring down what we call a guide. So I'm going to roll my mouse up into the ruler, and I'm going to click and drag straight down, and I get this little line here, and this is a little cyan line, and that's the default color. And if you don't like that color, we can change it by going to the Illustrator preferences here. So we'll go to Illustrator CC preferences, and then we'll go to guides and grids. If you are a PC user, I want to say that it's underneath edit in preferences or file in preferences. It's one of those two things. So I'll go to guides and grids, and I can change my guide to a different color. Like I'll make it like a red and say okay. And that just makes it a little bit easier for you to see. So the first thing to do is to just start going ahead and grabbing some letter forms here. And if you recall that Helvetica movie, when one of the font designers, said he would start to go ahead and put things into words, right? And that's exactly what we want to do. So I'm going to grab things like the H and the O and the P, and I'm going to hold down my Option key and drag them over here. The Option key will just copy them, and I'm going to try to make the word hop. And I'm just going to get kind of close to one another, and I'll zoom in here and I'll see what it looks like. And I created this guide because I wanted to create a baseline of sorts. And I'll throw these things in here and start to say, like, okay, does that make sense? And if hop works, let's try things like grab an S and maybe a T, right? And grab both of those things. And if hop works, let's pull this down, pull down another guide. Does shop work? So we'll grab our HOP here, and I'll hold the Option key down and drag and copy it down. So does shop work? And I'll go with the S, drag that straight down, throw a T in here, and grab the O and P and start bringing it down. And what I want to do is I want to start building I want to start building words out of these letter forms. And I want to start to see relationships form. And I think right away what you'll see is some things work out really well, and other things, like, it's a little weird how tall that H is compared to that lowercase s. Or is it weird how short that T is compared to that lowercase s? So, I told you in the last video, this is all about rules. So you got to think about your rules here and how these things are going to kind of work together. And, go ahead and make your name. So I'll go ahead and grab an N, and I'm going to hold down my Shift key and grab an I and a C and a K, and I'll drag those over. And try different words, right? Try kind of words that you wouldn't expect. Your names could be one of them, especially if it's not a common name. But, throw something in there like, Roadrunner or some funky kind of thing like that. And you'll see what works and what doesn't work. Like, those letter forms right there have a pretty good relationship. Nick, N-I-C-K, they're working out really well. But when I look at S-T-O-P, the P looks really big compared to everything else. So I wonder if that's the case, should I turn off my layer 2 here, which I'm going to just call that practice, and go back down to my layer 1 and start looking at things like my T, right? Wow, look at this. I got this extra room down here. Maybe what the T really needs is to just be a little taller, right? If I think about the H spread all the way from the bottom all the way to the top there. Okay, so maybe that's what the T needs as well. When I do that, though, is the crossbar here, is that too short? Should that really be here instead? And these are the things that you're only going to know when you experiment and you check out what these things kind of look like. That's all. So it takes time, and building those words are really going to help you do that. And that's, again, this, you've built yourself a set of rules. I've just highlighted this, and I'm going to drag this up to my practice layer, a duplicate of it, and here it is, right? Group that. I'm going to just move that over to the side because I got the little t there too, right? So now if I go ahead and I steal this and bring this over here, swap it out, how's that? Is that better? Does that work out a little bit better? Would it be better if these things were up here? It definitely would, right? So you want to experiment with this stuff. You want to see what works out best for you, and then you're going to play a little backtrack here, and you're going to go and you're going to modify your letter forms. Like me, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select these things. I'm going to say I don't need to fill here, but rather I want to fill there. And that's the T that's going to work. And you're going to do this. You're going to go back and forth and back and forth. And I can tell you, just from, looking at this really quickly, the Y is going to totally give me some problems. And I think that, let's see, the V could be somewhat problematic, and possibly the B. The E is definitely going to be problematic. I'll zoom into there right now. Let's go ahead and try to make a word with it. And here's the thing. You won't know what's going to work and what's not going to work until you do it. So let's try to make a word with it. So let's grab things that are a little different from one another. So let's grab a B, an E, and an S, and our new T, right? We'll make the word best. Drag them over here, and again, start making some letter forms. And there we go. And it's funny because I totally did not like what it looked like before, but when I threw it in a word here, this little extra thing on the E doesn't bother me. In fact, I wonder if I just select it and delete it. Well, that kind of works too. So I think it could go either way, actually. So, but then let's let's talk about the rule. Was there anything where there was an extra kind of little box hanging out, below that's not a descender? Like, yeah, you see that in the P's and the Q's and stuff like that, but you don't see it like, you don't see this extra kind of little box over here in the S, right? Or any other kind of lowercase letter. So that probably could have that removed, and it would be perfectly fine. And this is what you got to do. And this is what's going to take the most time, going back and forth between this and making sure that those letter forms actually make sense. And then from there, you'll go ahead and you'll design your poster, your 11 by 17 poster, and I have the templates right here for you. You can do it in a portrait standpoint or in a landscape mode, whatever you want to do. And the only thing that you need to have on there is you need to name your font, okay? And so you've got to include the name on it. I would recommend including probably some words, maybe descriptive words on it, and then you also need to go ahead and include with it an example of what the alphabet looks like and any numbers and symbols you use. And have fun. If I take a look at my Finder here and I go into some of my Alphanatomy examples, here's a really fun one, rocket ship. So it was called rocket ship, right? And they took a capital letter A that they created originally, and they turned it kind of into this rocket ship thing, and they've put all the the letter forms up here, and they're shooting at it, kind of like you would see in some old 1980s arcade games. And this is a real kind of fun kind of take on what a poster could be, right? So enjoy it, have fun with it, and don't take it too seriously, because if you think about it, what you're creating is somewhat of a decorative font, and a decorative font should be playful, and you should be playful in your advertisement of it. So, you know, here's another one right here, Mectra. And as you see, we see all of our we see all the letters of our alphabet, and then we start to see this kind of like almost like 1940s looking gas mask kind of soldier. And then over here, we've got blockout, and everything's here, and it's all right there, right on the nose. And here's another fun one, evacuate. And it's just the word evacuate over and over and over again. And then here we have our alphabet, right? So don't overthink these things. They can be a whole lot of fun. They can be a really interesting portfolio piece. And this will, for many of you, this will be the first time that you actually design your own font. So totally enjoy it. It can be a really rewarding process. So if you have any problems, please reach out, and good luck.